Hello and welcome to Saturday Morning Cartoons, the weekly podcast that revisits, reviews, and ridicules some of the world's weirdest animated series. Coming to you from the planet Mobius, I'll be your host, Dr. Trombotnik. Joining me as always, he's the
Oh my God.
yeah, I knew you were gonna like that one, Dr. Trombotnik. I've been saving that one. Get it out of your system. Joining me as
Oh
always,
God.
he's the fastest thing on this podcast. He's Sonic the Hedgehog. How's it going, sir?
Oh, David. I'm doing well. How about yourself, buddy? That was
I'm
perfect.
doing
That was
pretty
really
good.
perfect.
I work very hard on that all day at work today. Not doing any actual work, just working on the intro. Uh,
Who
yeah,
does do work during work,
I don't know.
right?
The schlubs out there.
Schlubs.
Hey, I'm gonna give you this one. We didn't really talk about this beforehand, but before we get into tonight's show, which listeners you can probably guess, I want to talk about video game consoles real quick. Now, let me take you back
Yes,
to
let's get into it.
a golden decade, 1990s. You were a kid, you play video games, Nintendo or Sega?
I was
Nintendo or Sega?
Nintendo.
You were a
I
Nintendo kid.
was
I'm surprised by that.
I
Okay.
was I was heavy Nintendo. Why is that surprising?
I just thought for this particular episode, I don't know, for some reason I thought you were a Sega kid.
N- I I have been I was very loyal
Yeah.
Nintendo through the Wii.
Ooh, wow.
and
That's
that,
a long
and
haul.
that's yeah, I was really in it, and then I purchased a PlayStation 3,
Hmm.
fell in love, followed it up with a PS4. I'm not looking back.
No, I don't blame you. Yeah, that was the same. Well, not quite the same for me. I was a Nintendo kid, and I made the Sony transition eventually, but it was much
Right.
earlier than that. So I didn't have the PlayStation. The first thing I got was the PlayStation 2. So that was my transition. I think I still had. Yeah, I never had the Wii. I never had the GameCube. The last thing I had was N64, and that was it. And then I jumped over to Sony. But
Okay.
so neither of us had Segas. You never had any Sega. You never had Sega Saturn, Sega Genesis, any of the handhelds.
I still have
Mm.
the Sega Game Gear, which was the handheld,
Oh, Game Gear. Yeah.
and I have two of the Sonic games for Game Gear, in addition to the television tuner that went into it, so that you could get TV.
Yeah.
And then there was an additional extender for the Game Gear that you would plug it into the back, and then you would plug the Sega Master System cartridges into this extender, and I could play the original Double Dragon and Ralston the Barbarian and Safari Hunt and Hang On, and I had a bunch of games for that original system, and so I was able to play them thanks to the Sega Game Gear. But the Sega
Hmm.
Genesis, my cousin owned one, and whenever I would go visit him in the summer, there was always a week that we would go up to Cape Cod,
Hmm.
Massachusetts, and visit my family up there. And my cousin Corey had a Sega Genesis and had Sega One, or yeah, Sega One. He had Sonic One and Two,
Yeah.
and we would play them until 3, 4 o'clock in the
Oh
morning. And
yeah,
so
definitely.
Sonic has always had a very deep nostalgic and family tie
Yeah.
to video games and playing in my memory. And so it was interesting to kind of jump back into the Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon this week, much to my chagrin.
Yeah, unfortunately, we'll keep those memories where they are because they are much more pleasant than revisiting the cartoon show in
Ugh.
its fullest. It's interesting that you say that though, because before we get into the history of this particular show, I feel like for kids of our age, now grown-ups, now sad grown-ups, living in their nostalgic dreams, and listeners out there, I mean, feel free to let us know if this pertains to you. But I feel like everybody either had a Nintendo, a Sony, or a Sega system, but then they always had a cousin, a neighbor, a friend across town. Somebody else always had one of the other systems that you could just kind of go and you could trade and you can bring your system
Right.
over and everybody could like trade houses on different weekends. So you could always play all the different systems. I don't I don't remember when there was such like animosity between different console systems because now like even the merchandising and South Park had a great episode with this where it was like the Sony PlayStation was it PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One and it was like a war that broke out between the two sides like I don't remember it being that bad when we were kids. Did you have like console wars when we were kids? Do you remember it
I,
being
I,
that bad?
I vaguely remember console
Okay.
wars. I'm sorry. I apologize. I distinctly remember
Okay.
console wars. There were so many lines drawn in the neighborhood where I grew up,
Really?
where certain people had Genesis
Hmm.
and certain people certain people had Sega Genesis and certain people had the Super Nintendo.
Right.
And there was the whole commercial where it was Nintendo don't.
Ooh,
It was Sega
that's
does,
a sick burn,
Nintendo
bro.
don't.
Sick
And
burn.
that was yeah, right. And
Yeah. Sick
that
burn in
was
the
their
90s.
late yeah, it was crazy. People really had their allegiance to a specific console and were willing to talk up the aspects and the merits of Sonic the Hedgehog, Toe Jam and Earl
Hmm.
versus established franchises like Super Mario Brothers,
Right.
Donkey Kong,
Zelda, all that stuff. Yeah.
Zelda.
That's interesting because I don't remember being quite that bad. Like, yeah, there'd be some like good-natured ribbing going on, like while we were playing, I don't know, Echo the Dolphin or Sonic the Hedgehog or
Right.
Blank the Animal. So I mean, like I don't remember there being like any like real animosity though. Like, I don't know, it was cool. It was like if I wanted to play Sonic, I'd go to my buddy's house. If he wanted to play Mario or whatever, he'd come over to my house, and that was it. That's all it was. But
I
now I don't
think the
know.
final cap to that is that
Hmm.
if I wanted to go swimming, I would just go over to Allison Keene's house.
Yeah, she has a pool, and she
She's
watches
a
the
pool.
fourth episode of everything. It's a
She
very
has a
weird quirk
pool.
that she has, but yeah.
Hmm.
So if you guys want to come over and go swimming and play cartoons, we got Sega, and we're gonna play Sonic, and then we're gonna go swimming. Hey, speaking of Sonic, did you know that there were like 7 Sonic cartoons from the 90s up until even today?
There are so many Sonic
So
cartoons.
many
It
Sonic
is
cartoons. Dude,
crazy.
to the point that like we almost got kind of confused with which ones we were watching for this episode because Sean sent me some links and I was like, "Are you sure you meant to watch this one and not this other one from the exact same time frame and the exact same
Right.
production company?" So to
With
kind
the
of
exact same voice actors?
yeah, same voice cast. So we'll get into that. I'm gonna give you a little bit of the history, listeners out there, so you know exactly which one we are talking about today. If it's not your favorite one, still stick around anyway because we're gonna touch on all of them a little bit, at least here in the intro. So, for tonight's episode, we watched Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog, which is very important to keep in mind because each of these titles is just slightly different. Now, this one was an American animated series produced by our friends over at Deke Animation. I don't know, Deke Animation City? I don't know if that was like a spin-off, if they just had like a satellite campus based out of San Francisco City College. I don't know what that one was, but we got
Well,
Deke
I
Animation
think
City. Yeah.
it's fun to note that Deke Animation
Hmm.
did the Super Mario Brothers Super Show.
Yes.
So Deke was not playing sides in this console war.
No.
They were cashing in.
Well, this was what 4 years later. So this was first broadcast on ABC September of 1993. It had a
Hmm.
65 episode run, which we're used to. They also had a Christmas special in 1996, but this was a few years removed from the debacle that was the Super Mario Brothers Super Show, which if you missed them, we talked about those 2 cartoons, Super Mario Brothers and was it Adventures of Zelda?
Legend of
Was it
Zelda.
just Legends? Why not
Adventures
Adventures
of
of Zelda?
Zelda?
Holy crap!
Oh my
I
god.
thought they changed the name for the show to like differentiate it from the cartoon, and as soon as I said it, I'm like, that is not correct. I'm gonna sound so stupid. Good thing we could just edit that right out.
No, we're gonna leave this
Oh
in. I can't wait.
no. So yeah, Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. Guess what, guys? It was based on a Sega video game, which you might have heard about from us. So that's the one that we watched. I don't want to get into the plot or even the tone of it. I'll let Sean cover that in a second. But I do want to mention some of the other series that have been around over the years. The other one, simply titled Sonic the Hedgehog, same year. It actually, I think, aired. It was only like 2 weeks after the previous one aired its first episode. It was also produced by Deke. And this one was referred to by fans as Sonic. I don't know if they say Sat AM or Satum, but it's basically Sonic SAT AM because it was sort of the more Saturday morning cartoon of Sonic the Hedgehog. It had a darker kind of tone to it. It featured Sonic and his friends as sort of these freedom fighters that were battling against the evils of Dr. Robotnik, but it had a very different style, both visually and in a storytelling fashion. Then jump to 1999. I'll just go through these real quick. There was a cartoon called Sonic Underground. It ran for 40 episodes. It didn't really have much to do with the other video games or other cartoons. Jump to 2003 2004, where Sonic X became the longest running animated series based on Sonic, with a total of 78 episodes. There were 52 of them originally between 2003 2004, and an additional 26 that jumped on in 2005, where it was picked up in North America by 4Kids Entertainment. And then most recently, we have Sonic Boom. In October 2013, Sega announced this one. It's a computer animated series, and they started airing on Cartoon Network just in November of last year. So that one's fairly new. I haven't even checked that out. I don't really even know what it looks like, but that is the most current iteration of Sonic the Hedgehog currently on your television. So that's pretty much the whole history of Sonic on TV. But for tonight's episode, I'm going to turn it back over to Sean. He's going to tell you what Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog is all about.
Thanks,
Sure.
Dave. So, Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. It followed the adventures of obviously Sonic the
How about
Hedgehog
that?
and his sidekick Tails.
Yeah.
Now, I want to ask, do you remember what Tails' full name was, Dave?
Oh God, I don't. I know it's
Uh, it
real
was
bad.
it was Tails miles per hour.
Oh no.
Well, that was, I'm sorry. His real name is Miles per Hour, and his
Nickname
nickname
is Tails.
is
So
Tails.
Tails is in
Yes.
quotations, but his real name is miles per hour.
Yep.
You can just shut it down right there. I
I,
think we're done for the night.
I
That's
closing up this
it's
laptop.
look. I like Knuckles the Echidna and some of the other ones, but miles per hour. Does that even like translate in Japanese? Was that an original like Japanese create? I don't know.
I'm not sure, honestly.
Americans are terrible.
We really are.
Yeah.
The we had the same big bad in this show that we've had in just about, well, a majority of the Sonic the Hedgehog games. We have Dr.
Right
Robotnik.
now, put a pin in that
And
because I have some confusion on that name with regards to some other
shoot, what's
things.
going
No,
on?
no, no. I want to get back to it in a second because it's going to be
Oh,
a
okay.
segue kind of thing. Yeah.
We're gonna dog ear that guy.
Yeah, do it.
So, Dr. Robotnik has an array of different robots that he is attempting to use to take over the planet Mobius. Robotnik and his robotic allies that he has are extremely clumsy, and that is unbelievably transparent whenever you see Scratch and Grounder, and also Coconuts, who is a monkey.
He's like a monkey with like a weird, like a light, like a police light on his head kind of thing. Is that what
Right.
it was? I don't know.
It's sort of, it's just a light bulb underneath like a dome
Yeah.
on top of Coconut's head.
Yeah.
I don't know.
He's fun.
It's very interesting. It What was interesting was when I was reading about the show, all of those characters, Coconut, who is a monkey, Grounder, who is sort of a small tank tread,
Yeah, with like little drill hands and stuff. Yeah.
right, and with a drill nose,
right.
and then Scratch, who is a robotic anthropomorphic chicken.
Right.
Are all based on sprites or character animations that they had that were in Sonic, I believe Sonic the Hedgehog 2.
Okay.
And I had to go back and I had to look at the different sprites that were in both of those games, and lo and behold, I found a Grounder, I found a Coconut. Scratch was a little bit of a stretch. I wasn't 100% sure that they had, it really wasn't a one-for-one translation, but for Grounder, this little tank and this little monkey, there were almost identical sprites that were in the video game. I think with Scratch, it looked more like a chicken airplane.
Sure.
Yeah, makes
Yeah,
sense.
that makes sense. Well, about as much sense as anything else in the show. Yeah.
Exactly. So it was kind of interesting, but it was fun to look back and recap on some of those sprites that were in the cartoon. And
Yeah, and it's actually interesting to look at the other cartoons, so just Sonic the Hedgehog, not Adventures of, because they do have some of those characters that kind of cross over too, but the visual style is so
Right.
different. Like the Scratch character, I think it's sort of like Dr. Robotnik's kind of like parrot type creature that is on his shoulder. It's almost like
Right.
Blofeld with the cat. Was it Blofeld that had the cat? I am not a Bond fan. But basically, like it was his little pet creature that he had with him. It wasn't another kind of sidekick character. So the tones of these two series, even though they ran at the same time, same production company, same voice
Right.
cast, like Sean mentioned, completely different and meant for, I think,
Yeah.
different age ranges too, which we'll get into.
Correct.
Yeah.
Each plot of one of these shows for the Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog revolved around Sonic and Tails foiling Dr. Robotnik's latest villainous scheme. It just kind of showed the incompetence of Dr. Robotnik continually. It he had the best intentions. Look, he wanted
Did
to
he
take over
have the best
Mobius.
intentions? I think he had the worst
He-
intentions.
Like any good supervillain or villain in general or evil mad scientist, he wanted to conquer Mobius. I get that. I understand it. I can relate. Who hasn't had the idea or the goal of taking over something?
Yeah. I was going to go with
No?
Planet Mobius. No, I totally did. I want an army
Oh, okay.
of various incompetent robots, And if I'm foiled by a hedgehog and whatever the hell Tails is, then yeah, I can understand his frustration.
A double-tailed
A
fox.
double-tailed miles per hour.
Oof. I think the highlight or the thing that drew me to this show the most is that every episode is rounded out with a Sonic Says,
Yes.
which we should say it's Sonic Says, kind of in the same vein as Simon
Right.
Says, but Tails would always spell says
Mm-hmm.
incorrectly and put S-E-Z, and then Sonic would take a look at it and fix the spelling error.
Super quick, super
And
speedy like.
super
Yeah.
speedy. And this was their opportunity to provide a PSA. And the three PSAs that we
We're
watched,
so good.
oh
My favorite
boy,
parts of the show, especially that
I'm,
third one. I can't wait to talk about
that
that.
third one was
Oh
amazing.
no.
I want to. We have a lot of amazing things to tease at and talk about
We
in this
do, we
show.
do. It's
The
a good
PSAs
episode.
being one of
Yeah.
them, upcoming artwork
Hmm.
for this show being another one.
Yeah. Not Sonic, our show. This show right here.
Our show,
This very unique
Saturday
show.
morning cartoons.
Yeah. Good plug.
So this show capped off with one of these PSA
Right.
segments. And I'm honestly thinking about going through all of the episodes are
Yeah.
available on YouTube. I'm thinking about going through and scrubbing to the end of every YouTube episode just to watch these Sonic Says
I'm sure
segments.
I will save you trouble. I am sure someone has already done that and just linked them all
Oh,
together out there somewhere. Yeah.
please, internet, don't let me down on
Yeah.
this instance.
Here's okay. So the PSA aside, did they? I want to know if they ever had one where they actually teach Tails how to spell. Because if he does this like 40, 65 times, but he always spells it wrong, then I think he has a learning disability, and I think that needs to be addressed. I think that's a serious consideration.
I'm honestly surprised that he's a fox that knows how to spell.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I guess I should give him that much. I'm probably asking too much of a woodland creature with a mutation that leads to two quickly rotating tails that allow him to fly across the plains and almost keep up with Sonic. Yeah.
Do you I mean, I don't 100% know the answer to
Hmm.
this, but do you think that there's maybe like a really dark story behind how miles per hour turned into tails?
I mean, there's got to be, but I feel like it's probably in
Okay.
Sonic the Hedgehog and not Adventures of, because this
Like a
this
dark,
this show
really
for
dark
I
story.
will give you this though. They at least in their first episode gave you the origin story of the two robot idiot villains, Scratch and Grounder,
Right.
which I appreciated. I don't think it was an okay origin story, and after that it just kind of devolves into cartoonish madness. But
I'm gonna stop you right
do
there.
it.
Was it an okay origin story, or was
Um,
it the most vanilla, mediocre origin story you've ever heard in your
as
life?
far as the rest of this show goes, it was okay. Now we are on a very like sliding scale here of terribleness because this is why I asked Sean as I started watching it. I was like, "Are you sure you meant to pick this one because it's pretty bad even for our standards." Uh,
And I remember watching The Adventures of Sonic the
yeah, and
Hedgehog.
we both did, right? We watched
We both
both
did.
series though, correct? Did you watch the other one?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah, I
I
thought so.
watched both series. I watched both series. I think this one, because it aired the 2 weeks prior
Right.
to the other episode, we've been going in sequential order. And so, as we mentioned with the Super Mario Brothers Super
Hmm.
Show, there are several Super Mario iterations. And we know that there are several Sonic iterations as well. And so, when we do another video game month in the future,
Yeah.
TBD, we hope to go back and kind of recap on some of those.
Yeah. So don't worry if we're not covering your favorite one just yet. We will eventually get back to them, and we will have sort of a revisitation, and eventually in 7 years' time, we'll have gotten through all of the iterations of Sonic the Hedgehog, because there will probably still be more in the future. Who knows? But for tonight, we've got Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. Do you want to talk about kind of the intro and theme and how that kind of plays into the tone and the kind of the silliness of the show? We talked about this offline
Sure.
because we actually, I think both of us had a different theme in mind before we actually started watching the show.
We
Didn't
did.
we have the theme from just Sonic the Hedgehog?
Yes,
Yeah.
we both had the there's a there's a line in the Sonic the Hedgehog theme song which is too fast for the naked eye, Sonic the Hedgehog. And that continued to play in repeat in my
Yep.
brain even while I was watching the introductory theme song for Adventures of
Which
Sonic
is
the Hedgehog.
totally different.
Oh my god.
That was my
Oh
first. That
boy.
was my first nod that like things were not going to be okay tonight. Was that theme song? It's very much this entire show from beginning to end, with the exception of maybe that Sonic Says PSA. It is very much a throwback to like a classic Looney Tunes or even some of the more cartoonish kind of Hanna-Barbera stuff, even to the point where they just lift jokes and dialogue and puns right out of it. And they try to modernize it a little bit, but it's in that vein. So if we can give you kind of a sense of the style, it's basically a Bugs Bunny, Daffy Duck kind of Looney Tunes style. Would you agree with that?
I'm I'm partially
Okay.
50%.
Okay.
I 100% agree with you that it was Looney Tunes based,
Hmm.
but this was Roadrunner and Wile E. Coyote the entire time.
If
That's
the
all it
coyote was
was.
a robot, yeah, I could see that.
Yes.
Oh, that brings me to my questions. I have questions on Dr. Robotnik. Now, forgive my
Ooh, let's get
ignorance.
into it.
Is Dr.
Going back to
Robotnik
that dog ear.
right? Is Dr.
Right.
Robotnik himself a robot?
Well, that's a good question. I never. There was one point in, I believe, episode three
Yeah.
where we saw that there were other human beings in
Ye-
a town that he was trying to flood.
ye- yes.
You saw them for about a split
It wasn't very
second.
long, and the animation style in this show is
Was
like the cheapest damn
garbage.
thing. It's just a lot of like single color backgrounds and just like splash pages and just like quickly painted two-dimensional buildings. There was
Right.
nothing. There was nothing to it. It just
The
looked like a
entire
kid's
town.
drawing. Yeah.
Have you ever watched a western where the town is a fake town where it's just the cutouts of the shapes of the
Like
buildings that are
Blazing
kind of
Saddles.
propped up? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's Blazing Saddles.
Yeah.
Thank you. So it is Blazing Saddles faux fake town
Right.
through and through for a majority of the animation style
All the
of this
backgrounds.
show.
Yeah, all the
Every
backgrounds.
every background in the
You
show
can basically
looks
see
like
the like pine 2x4s just holding up the animated facades. Yeah.
everything looks like if a small gust or a zephyr knocked it out, like
Or a sonic
came in
boom.
its direction,
Yeah.
or a sonic boom, that it would just blow that piece immediately to the ground.
And there are times when they like, the background will shift, or they'll show a character and they'll do kind of a close up on a character, and there's just a bizarre smattering of color behind them. There's no depth to anything. There's no detail, but that's kind of besides the point. I mean, that's just kind of the cartoonish quality of it. But Sean, you were saying
Well,
there was
regarding
something.
regarding perspective and,
Yeah.
and depth of vision,
Yeah.
it doesn't really give you much.
No, not at
You
all.
look at it and you think to yourself, this was one of the first cartoons that I believe I've watched in a while where I have thought this is very much on a 2D plane.
Oh yeah.
They're not even attempting to show perspective whatsoever.
There are a couple episodes, or a couple scenes in these episodes that we watch. Now, granted, we only watched the first three, but there are a couple moments where Sonic kind of runs over. He loves to run over hills a lot because he can kind of like run up and then disappear behind the hills and then just pop up a second later. So it's kind of like that's how they show his speed. But they never actually show any kind of like depth to the hills. They're just like weird bumps that he runs over. So they try some perspective stuff, but this is not. They are not trying to like push the boundaries of animation. This is very just like kids level cartoonish slapstick schmaltzy comedy for the whole time. That's all it is.
Right.
That's all we're looking for here. But you said Robotnik had a moment in episode 3 where you thought he was kind of
Well,
robotic.
they showed other humans, and I
Right.
thought to my up to that point, I had thought to myself, the question I had was, it really maybe it's not a question, maybe it's just a statement. It really has to be very sad and lonely to be living on Mobius and be the only human that's on this planet.
Yeah, you've got he's the lone human if he is human, and then you've got a rambunctious hedgehog and his mutated fox partner that are causing all kind of trouble. And Robotnik just has to make legions of robots for himself. Sometimes they're dumb, sometimes they're sexy, all kinds of robots. But that's it. And then they keep getting bashed up by this hedgehog and mutant fox. So it's no wonder they're just pissed off all the time. But I never understood that character myself. Like who is Eggman? I need to throw that out there. Who's Eggman? And who's Dr.
I
Robotnik? Are they related at
I
all?
think I believe they are synonymous.
Are they the
Sort of
same? Is it like
sort
Dr.
of in the
Eggman
same sense.
Robotnik? People are
I
getting so mad at me right now. I could just tell.
No, no. We had this same conversation 2 weeks ago when we talked about Super Mario Brothers. That We had King Koopa
Oh,
and
right. And
Bowser,
Bowser. Right, right.
and they are synonymous to one another. It's Bowser is his name, and he is the king
King
of
of
the
the
Koopas.
Koopas. So Robotnik is king of the Eggmen.
I think
I don't think
from
that's
my
right.
without doing any research on this
Yep,
whatsoever,
right off the
I
cuff.
think I think Eggman is the slang or pejorative term to refer to Dr. Robotnik that Sonic uses.
He likes to use what does he use? He likes to use slow mo a lot,
Oh boy, I
which I
wrote down
find.
so many catchphrases that he used during the show.
Yeah,
It is
there's
insane.
some good ones. There's some good ones.
There's a lot of rhyming. Uh, there are a lot of rhyming moments that he
Yeah, weird
has
little
where
like
he says,
couplets and stuff. Yeah.
you know, you got it, Ace. Let's race.
Yeah. Thanks, Jaleel White. Hey,
Uh,
now's a good time to talk about that voice cast.
let's talk about that voice cast.
We really only need to talk about one character, and I already mentioned him. So, yeah, Sonic, voiced by Jaleel White.
So,
Hey, Sean, where do I know that name from?
you know him from Family Matters
Hmm.
because he played the role of Steve Urkel.
And later, Stefan
And
Urkel.
yes,
Yeah, little tidbit.
very, very suave
Oh
and
yeah,
debonair,
yeah,
Stefan Urkel.
Stefan Urkel.
I had a very difficult time after reading that Jaleel White was Sonic
Yeah,
of not seeing Steve Urkel in
yeah.
every single moment. Anytime he said something, I was waiting for him to be like, "Did I do
And
that?"
he kind of makes it like a kid's voice too. So
Yeah,
it's very strange knowing what the guy looked like from Family Matters, hearing that, and then trying to piece it together and just be like, no, wait, it's just Sonic. Like, don't pay attention to Jaleel White standing behind the mic. It's a little
right.
weird, a little strange.
I will say, I think he does a great job as Sonic.
Yeah, definitely. And I
I
don't know
think
how
for
long he was there. Like, I know he did it for these two shows, so I'm assuming he was just in the studio twice as long. I couldn't imagine doing like the
well, he
voices
did
for
it. He
both,
did
but
it for Sonic the Hedgehog,
right,
The Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog,
right.
and Sonic Underground.
Oh wow, okay, so he was there for a while. He was
Yeah,
Sonic
he
for a
was there
good
for
long
a
time.
while.
Yeah, good for him. Good job, Jaleel White.
Sonic has been good to him. Sega has been great to him.
Yeah. Was there ever a Steve Urkel video game?
Oh my God, was
We
there? I
need to
want there to
research that
be.
because I don't want to say, oh, of course not. That would be
Holy
ridiculous.
crap.
I feel like there
Even
might
if
have
it's a
been.
text-based
I'm
adventure
fine with that.
where you get to pick if you in fact did that or does anybody actually have any cheese, I would be so on board with being able to play that
Dude,
for a very long
I'm
time.
picturing like Steve Urkel's face just popping up on my TI-83 Plus calculator right now for some reason.
Did you have a Steve Urkel game on your TI-83?
No, but for the purpose of this podcast, absolutely I did,
Oh
and
boy,
I programmed it,
I
and it
want
was
that.
amazing. Yeah. For
I
a
want
future
that so
episode.
bad.
I know usually you love the cutesy kind of characters. So it's a toss up here. Tails or coconuts is your call.
Ooh,
Tails or
this
coconuts.
is this is tough.
I mean,
I
if you liked Scratch or Grounder, I mean, feel free to substitute them in for coconuts. But
no,
that phrase
I
makes no sense to anyone who's never seen this show because it just sounds like
we
just
should explain.
yeah,
So we clearly have Sonic the Hedgehog.
right.
He is a blue hedgehog who
Super
can
fast.
run thank you. He can
Yes.
run super fast, and he has a triple spin attack, which he turns into a buzzsaw blade and can cut through most
Pretty
objects.
much anything. Yeah.
We have Tails, or Miles Per Hour, who is a double-tailed fox character and best friend of Sonic. He travels by flying through a propulsion method of spinning his tails together to create what looked like a helicopter
He's
blade.
basically just a helicopter where his body is just dangling from his tails.
He's like a fox drone.
Yeah, he really is.
Is what he looked like. We have a very chubby and clearly, as Dave mentioned, Eggman, because he's very egg
Egg
shaped.
shaped. Yeah,
Doctor
from his head
Robotnik,
to his nose to the rest of him. Yeah.
who is humanoid. I don't know if I answered your question earlier, Dave, but I think he is a
No.
human.
Well, it's
I
weird
want to
because
contend that he is a human.
and it's hard to know in this show where the robotic characteristics end and where the cartoonish characteristics begin because there are
Right.
moments where like Dr. Robotnik, like if he gets steamed, he literally turns into a steam whistle and just like blows his top. There's a moment where he In order to tell his gathered bounty hunter robots just how much he hates Sonic, he somehow has the word hate tattooed across his teeth that when he bites down, all his teeth like just shatter. So there are some
Yes.
very strange moments, but I don't know if they're robotic or if they're cartoonish, and I'm very confused. So
I want to say that they are
yeah,
cartoonish
okay.
in nature. These are, as we mentioned at the very beginning,
Hmm.
a lot of the elements of this cartoon are very slapstick.
Yes.
There's moments where Sonic pulls on Dr. Robotnik's ginger mustache
Right.
or his ginger odd. It wasn't a Fu Manchu.
No, I don't know what that was.
It was just a giant hipster mustache that he had that Sonic would tug on every once in a while, and that would cause him
If you
pain.
can pull it off, that's a great cosplay accessory. If you can grow an
I
actual
don't know.
Robotnik mustache, that'd be great.
I'm gonna work on it.
I didn't mean you specifically. I just meant anybody out there in listener
Oh,
land. But if
okay.
you specifically,
That's
Sean,
fine.
can do it, then that
No,
would be
no, I
fantastic.
got excited that you were referring to
Yeah.
me.
No, do it.
No, thanks for getting my hopes
Yeah,
up, Dave.
anytime.
So, uh, Dr. Robotnik creates all of the
Right.
robots that are on Mobius. All of these bounty hunters, these
Sex
just
bots.
dum dums.
Sometimes we have sex bots,
Sometimes we have
which
sex
we'll get
bots.
to
Oh
because
boy,
that
we
happens.
have we have three main robots that are being used. We have Scrouch, which is a chicken humanoid, as we mentioned. We have Grounder, which is a drilling kind of
Hmm.
tank, and we have Coconuts,
So
who is a monkey.
cute little monkey. Now I want to talk a little bit about each of these because they have a specific one specific thing for each of them that bugs me or just kind of like sticks out in my mind. So for
Oh my
Scratch,
god, let's get in.
for
Go.
Scratch, it's his like robotic rooster laugh that they use incessantly.
Can I do
I
it?
don't know if you can. I can't. I can't hit
Yeah.
that note.
Can I
You
try
can
it?
try it.
When he goes,
That's pretty good. It's similar to that, and they just use it constantly. Every time he says something, it's almost like a nervous tick. Like he just says that at the end of his sentence. It's almost like he's like, Grounder, you've got to help me. I can't stop laughing. And then he just does that laugh, and it's like really serious, but it's supposed to be funny. I don't know.
oh,
It's
it's bad.
really irritating. That was my one irritating thing with Scratch. How'd you feel about him?
I felt indifferent about
Okay, fair
Scratch.
enough.
When you learn about the origin
Right.
story, you learn that Scratch was the ultimate robot that Dr. Robotnik has built in order to trap
And
Sonic.
Tails, yeah.
And then you
And
find
actually,
out,
that's a good. I mean, do you want to just get into that episode? Because that's the first episode
sure,
anyway. So that's right
sure.
off the bat,
And
yeah.
so you find out that to create
Hmm.
Grounder, Dr. Robotnik cloned a tail feather from Scratch to make Grounder, but
Ooh, hold on. Hold
during
that
the
thought.
cloning,
Hold that thought. I
sure.
want to take one brief step back. This episode opens with a very odd kind of like effeminate, spiky armored bounty hunter basically just smashing through a house, asking
Yes,
with a lisp just where the bounty hunter convention is. And it's really
he did.
strange. Yeah.
And he's never named. I wrote
Nope.
his name as Sassy Bull Robot.
Sassy bull robot. Yeah, I'm fine with that. That's pretty accurate. But it serves
And
to
I,
yeah.
my favorite line that he says is later in the episode where he just goes, "The fun's over, Hedgehog.
Yeah, it's the sassiest line I've ever heard. The
The
fun's
fun's
over.
over, Hedgehog."
Man, him
Finger
and
snap.
the White Knight from last week's Zelda episode would get along
Yeah.
fabulously. But he and the other bounty hunter robots, they only serve to show that Sonic can smash them up very easily because they are all stupid. So Dr. Robotnik is like, fine, I've got to make another robot, the ultimate robot, one who's actually smart. And in order to make him smart, I believe he throws a computer and a cash register, like in a grinder, more or less.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, to take a half a step back,
Yes.
when Sonic is destroying all of these
Mm-hmm.
robots, he is taking great
Oh
pleasure
yeah.
in the fact that he is torturing
He's
and
sadistic.
destroying all of these robots. Like he is murdering these robots without any remorse
And in
whatsoever.
very like specific ways, like very much like Home Alone style. I've thought about this to
Yes.
begin with, and now I'm going to drag you through my house of horrors kind of thing. Yeah,
Yes.
real sadistic when he does this.
Yeah. So to your
Yeah.
point, when Dr. Robotnik is creating Scratch, he is throwing pretty much everything in the kitchen
Hmm.
sink into this robotomatic
Yes, that sounds right.
machine. My favorite part was that when he says, I'm going to make you, and I'm going to make you the most intelligent robot. He throws a graduation cap
Right.
in,
I missed that one, but okay.
into the machine. It was I love the idea that that's what signified
Yeah.
intelligence was a graduation cap, and he just plunks it in
Throws it in.
with zero
Hey, I was gonna
context.
say, did it work?
It did
It
not
did not
work.
work at all.
He created a persistent
Hmm?
yet flawed robot.
Yes, that's fair. It's a fair character assessment of Scratch.
Yes.
Yes. And from Scratch,
So
from the rib of Scratch, I almost said loins. That's not right. From the the rib of
oh boy.
Scratch. What was it? His feather? He just pulled one of his like robotic tail
He
feathers out.
pulled a red tail feather
Red
out of
tail
his
feather.
butt.
Yeah, out of his butt, which kind of explains where Grounder comes from. But
Right.
this is where I cut you
So
off. So what happens in the making of Grounder?
well, during the making of Grounder, Dr. Robotnik pulls these three levers, three out of four levers,
Correct.
and then realizes that Scratch has pulled the fourth one. Scratch comments on the fact that he's helping.
Yeah.
Look, he was just
He
created
was
and he's
just
trying
hatched.
to be
Yeah.
useful.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Just hatched, trying to be useful, trying to show his worth, contribute to what's going on here. And Dr. Robotnik gets extremely frustrated
Right.
with this and screams at him. And yet Grounder is born.
Yeah, he just kind of gets.
And
Well, the great thing is like so Robotnik's yelling at Scratch, and the machine kind of like beeps to signal that it's done, and Robotnik gets excited again. And he's like, "Fantastic!" He's like, "Now the perfect facsimile, your twin, my latest creation," and this kind of like little fat tank thing just kind of squirts out. Doesn't Scratch say something like, "God, am I that ugly?" Something like really sad,
yes.
actually.
Yes.
And then so
It's
these two,
very shameful
it is.
how he treats essentially his twin
yeah.
at this
But
point.
because he's the first, he's got the superiority complex, and both of them are
Sure.
idiots, and they're always at odds, which allows Sonic to easily get the upper hand on them because they're real dumb, despite the fact that he has
Right.
graduation cap DNA in his circuits. Yeah.
I will say I think Grounder is my
Let's
favorite.
talk about Grounder's butt.
Let's talk about Grounder's butt. And I mentioned this previously off air, Dave. Grounder doesn't have a Grounder is interesting
Right.
because he is a tank with two tank treads for legs. He has drills for both of his hands that are swappable with
Anything.
those drills on his hands are his hammer space.
Anything. Sometimes a pumpkin. Literally anything.
Thank you.
Ah, that pumpkin.
Pretty much anything. And his nose is also a drill. Grounder is very simplistic. He's very easygoing, but he has a tramp stamp.
He does.
He has this little sign over his butt that just says X14, and I he's a robot that has a butt.
Yeah.
And
Let's
I
get
have
that
not
out of
been
the way
able to
first.
wrap my head. He's a robot with a butt. I have not been able to wrap my head around this, but he doesn't just have a butt. He has a tushy.
Yeah. He's got a
I
tank
don't know how
tushy.
to differentiate the
I don't
two
either, but it
other
makes
than
sense for Grounder for some reason.
it does.
It does.
His tushy. If you've ever seen SpongeBob, kind of, I don't know, kind of cheat out and kind of like very shy and coyly show his butt in a very innocent
Yeah,
manner.
like the Suntown, like the
That's
Coppertone kid or whatever it is. Yeah,
Yes, perfect.
that's a tushy.
Grounder has the Coppertone tushy
Yeah. With a tramp
it
stamp
is-
on it.
with a tramp stamp on
And we
it.
don't know what X14 is. I don't know if they ever addressed that.
Well, we should note that the tramp stamp is held. It's on a sign that's held up by a piece of string over a nail. So it's not really. Why did you put a nail into the? It doesn't make any.
No, none of
he's
it
got
makes
a
sense.
butt, and he. Oh, but I love Grounder. I think Grounder is my favorite character in this show.
I also like the fact that if you go around to his kind of front side, he's got this little pot belly. He's got a gauge where his belly button would be. That's just like
Yes.
the needle is kind of just slightly half past or past half full. Full of what? I don't know. But there he is. He's slightly more than half full. So that's
I'm
Grounder.
assuming it's fuel or
Could be
whatever.
fuel. It could be
sustains him.
waste. It could be oil. I don't know.
God.
It could be glue for his glue gun.
I want to know it's all of the above.
It's got to
Like,
be all the, but just
D, all the
all-purpose
above.
gauge. Yeah. Grounder's full of everything. Now, here's an
Did
interesting. Yeah, go ahead. You had something on Grounder.
Well, I was gonna say, you had an interesting point, but I was gonna ask
Mhm.
also, and this might lead into yours. Did you have a favorite character as
Well,
well?
here, okay, this does kind of lead into it because I'm most curious. I did not like any of these characters, but I was most curious about coconuts because
Fuck these
yeah, that's
guys.
pretty bad. We get the origin story of Scratch and Grounder, which by way of that we kind of learn Robotnik and his feud with Sonic and Tails. So we kind of learn all that in the first episode. But Coconuts quite literally just comes out of a door in the middle of a wall, and you don't know where he came from. He's been like relegated to janitorial duty, so he's just carrying
Well,
a
Dave,
plunger around. But yeah,
Dave, most doors are in walls.
you have doors and walls at your place.
Doors and walls. That's how doors work.
Doors and walls.
Well, doors are in. Oh my
I
god, I'm
really
not
need
gonna
to
explain
like.
architecture.
This place is rent controlled, but I don't know if it's worth all that. If I don't have doors and walls,
But you are correct. He comes out of a door holding a toilet
right?
plunger, and he has been relegated to janitorial services and duties.
Duty. So to that,
Boy.
yeah, to that respect though, he was the original of Robotnik's creations, right? So it sets up an interesting kind of triangle with these three. So Coconuts
Right.
is a crazy robot with kind of like a New York accent kind of thing, and he's trying to do the same thing that the other two are doing. So he's trying to kidnap Sonic and Tails, trying to capture them to prove to his creator, Dr. Robotnik, that he's worthy and that he's a good robot, he's a good monkey, and he's doing everything that he needs to do. But at the same time, he's at odds with these other two idiots. But I felt gypped. Like I wanted to know Coconut's story. Where did he come from? Why is his name Coconut? Why does he have a light on his head? What did he do to piss off the boss? Like, what happened to him? I want to know about Coconuts. So he was my, I guess you can say, favorite. He was the most
Okay.
interesting character to me. Yeah.
Well, I will say that coconuts,
Hmm.
along with all of the other bounty hunter
Hmm.
robots that were at the
Yes,
convention, they all looked like rejected robots from a Mega Man
they
game.
really did. I was gonna
They
ask about
really
Dr.
did.
Wily too, because sometimes I get those two confused. But
Dr. Wily and Dr. Robotnik.
yeah, sometimes,
Oof.
sometimes I get them
Well,
confused.
I mean, there are a lot of parallels between the two. I mean,
Yeah,
that makes sense.
they're little
They
hovercraft
are
things. They're mad scientists. They create
they
robotic.
build a robot
Yeah.
army.
See, okay, all right. I figured I was
That,
close. I wasn't sure though.
no, that makes sense. I'm just thankful that we don't have the Mega Man character in this show that
From
we had
Captain
from
N.
Captain N.
Holy crap!
Oh God.
Little green. We got to do the actual Mega Man cartoon. I do remember liking that one. So that'll be our maybe for our next video game segment. We'll dip into Mega Man,
I think so.
but
I would like a shot at Mega Man Redemption
Mega Man Redemption. That'd be great.
because we failed miserably with
Yes,
Captain
Captain
N.
N, a green cigar smoking Mega Man. That's not quite Mega,
Who just says Mega at the end of everything?
Mega, and then he has a rooster laugh, which makes no sense. Do you want to dig into these episodes a little bit more? Honestly, I mean, listeners, I'm going to be honest with you. There's not a lot of plot that goes into these episodes. There's nothing you can really kind of mull over and look for a meaning of life in. It's just a bad guy trying to do bad stuff, and the good guys stop him. That's really it. Did you have
Right.
anything that jumped out at you in these two?
Well, the fun thing
Hmm.
is that in many of these instances, Grounder, Scratch, or Coconuts believe that they have captured Sonic,
Right.
and then he will reappear in disguise,
Yes.
and they will fall for it every
Every
fucking
single time.
time.
Yep.
Without fail, they will fall for his hijinks and his costume changes in a blink of an eye, and it's incredible to watch that they never gained that insight or as learning robots that they never processed that and
Yeah.
thought to themselves, oh shit, it's probably just Sonic wearing a beard and a pair of glasses looking like Albert Einstein.
Exactly.
We should just capture him.
Yeah,
That
just capture
never
this guy
happened.
anyway. If nothing else, he's probably related to Sonic because he kind of looks like him. So we can use him as leverage. Oh wait, it's actually Sonic. It's funny though
Oh
because I
god, it's
just I
like
just picture like Jaleel White just like trying to do the Sonic voice but tweak it just slightly enough so that he could be in disguise. It's so bad though, dude. It's like if we tried to do an impression of Jaleel White doing Sonic disguised as another character. It's that level of just kind of like diluted, watered down accent. But yeah,
yeah, it's pretty bad.
it's pretty bad. but it's funny. It's like I said, it's aimed at younger kids, so I
Well,
can see why that slapstick would be funny. Yeah.
let me ask the
Hmm.
question. In any of the video games, did Sonic eat chili dogs?
I don't know where this came from, but it
Did
is
he
used
did Sonic the
exhaustively.
Hedgehog eat chili dogs in any of these games, David?
Look, man, I think they left the rings out and they brought the chili dogs in. That's
That
the
doesn't
only
even
way to
make any
explain it. No,
sense.
no. There's no rings to be found. You can find them in Sonic the Hedgehog, not Adventures of, but in regular Sonic the Hedgehog. You can find the rings. They actually use them as like weapons and power-ups and all kinds of crazy stuff. But in this one, it's just chili dogs. And everybody loves chili dogs, and they exist on every continent, and everybody makes them. Sometimes there's even a PSA about them, and
Yep.
everybody loves chili dogs. Which this show, I will be honest, if they would have marketed like Skyline Chili and like Oscar Mayer all beef hot dogs, I would have gone out and just bought them because I
Wait,
really
you
want a
mean
chili
like
dog right now.
do you mean Skyline Chili from Ohio?
Yeah, Cincinnati. Yeah.
Oh my God, I've met very few people who have actually had Skyline Chili.
Dude, our buddy and listeners, you're not going to care about this unless your name is Doug Weedor, but he took us out on a road trip one time, and we did Skyline, White Castle, and man, somewhere else. It was just like a great, just fast food day. It's the
Oh
only place
man.
I've ever seen chili on spaghetti.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a very thin chili.
Yeah, it's a very signature kind of chili. It's very different from anything you've
It's
ever had.
interesting.
It's not the chili
No, when
cook-off
I
chili. Yeah.
yes, exactly. When I was in Cincinnati, I had it as well.
Yeah.
It's interesting. It's worth having
This
once.
episode brought to you by Skyline Chili.
Skyline
Have
Chili
a chili dog. Share it with your
in
neighbor.
San Francisco City College,
Organic chili
majoring in
dogs.
building robots.
I would take that class taught by Dr. Robotnik.
I'm double majoring in building robots and Jackie Chan studies.
Oh no, look, I will say that like Robotnik, if he is the only human on this planet, then he can kind of do his own thing, but he is terrible at his job. Not just causing havoc,
Yes.
but even just building these robots. He's real bad. I kind of feel bad for the guy. If he wasn't so damn evil and mustache twirling all the time, I'd feel a little worse for him.
Yeah. I think the other well to draw a parallel
Yeah.
to the Super Mario Brothers Super Show and the Legend of Zelda, both all three of these shows have had a signature element or catchphrase. With Super Mario Brothers,
Hmm.
it was pasta power.
Oh no, don't remind me, Pasta Power. I'm
With
still hooked on the brothers.
I know, got to get off
I know
that.
I'm in
With Legend
withdrawal.
of Zelda,
Yeah,
what?
I'm in withdrawal. Withdrawal?
Withdraw from the brothers
Yeah.
to the brink.
Oh no, my skin's
The
itching.
leg.
There's doors in all these walls, Sean. Help me.
Oh my god.
Yeah, Legend of Zelda. We had the
Legend of
catchphrase.
Zelda. We had yes. Please go ahead, Dave.
No, it's yours this time. This one's yours.
Well, excuse me, princess.
Yep.
And then in this, we had a combination of the overuse of chili dogs and these rhyming sentences that Sonic would use, and just to give you and just to torture you with a couple of them. I know I mentioned earlier the "You got it, Ace. Let's race."
Right.
There was also "Time to speed." Keyed.
Keyed? Like kid?
I don't know what a keyed is.
Is it like a
I thought it was-
Hispanic person saying kid?
Yeah, I don't know.
That's not
He
racist.
would
That's just accurate.
no, that's
How do
fact.
I reach
He
these
would just-
kids? Yeah.
He would just say, "Time to speed, keyed," and I'd be like, "What the fuck is a keyed?"
Like, just why not indeed?
what is that?
Time to speed indeed. Why could I not?
Eat my dust, Gus.
Oh man. They're not
This
even
way
good
to
rhymes.
the races.
They're like
No, they're not. They're shitty.
yeah.
But I mean, they go on. This way to the races, aces.
No, you can't use race and ace twice. I don't care if you pluralize it.
One shade getting made.
What is that about? It sounds like
That was when
drugs.
that was in episode 3 where he gets the umbrella for Breezy.
We need to talk about that briefly because we have been
Yes.
teasing sex bots this entire time, and the listeners with bated breath out there are waiting for
Yeah. Okay.
hedgehog sex bots. I am very
Well, I think
confused, and maybe you can help me with this. I'm very confused
please.
at hedgehog biology.
Yeah, let's get into
The
this.
males are apparently just like ball-shaped, spiky-headed speedsters with sneakers, and the females are apparently like relatively attractive,
Va 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 voom.
very tall, leggy, shapely, curvy creatures that don't wear very many clothes. Do I
Yes,
got that right? Pretty much.
correct.
I majored in hedgehog biology at San Francisco City College. So, yeah, this is a weird thing where we're introduced to this character. Her name's Breezy. She,
This is in episode 3.
yeah, lovesick Sonic. At the opening
Yes.
of this episode, she is being chased by Scratch and Grounder. And Sonic obviously comes to her rescue, and then he's instantly smitten. So, for most of the episode, Sonic is just running these errands pretty much all around the planet just for whatever Breezy wants. And I can't really blame him because she's not wearing a lot of clothes and she's pretty hot, especially for a dumpy little guy like Sonic. So,
We need to mention that her dress is cut above the slits that are on the two slits in her dress, in her cocktail dress,
yeah.
very low cut cocktail dress. The slits that are on the legs of the dress go above her hips.
Yeah. To the point that like when the back of it when she's kind of like turned to the side, it's just a hedgehog butt just hanging out there.
Hedgehog butt.
But it's weird because it's not like every other creature in this show, like I don't know, Spelunk the gem hungry mole. It's
Right.
like basically a human. So she's kind of like a Jessica Rabbit at this point.
Yes, that's exactly that's the note
Yeah.
that I wrote down.
Yeah.
Yes, thank
She's
you.
a Jessica Rabbit. To give you guys a visual, that's what it is, but with like more skin exposed somehow. So there you go. That's your visual. So it's
Less
no wonder
human,
that
more
Sonic is insane.
hedgehog.
Yes. More hedgehog, more nudity.
More
Hedgehog
sexy,
nudity
sexy
on
hedgehog.
Saturday morning cartoons. Yeah, so do you want to give the kids the big reveal in this episode, or should we save it?
Well, no, I mean, it turns out there are so many things in this episode
Yeah.
that I don't
Yeah.
understand that I feel like they snuck them in
There's a lot of chili
and they were
dogs.
surprising. Well, there's a lot of chili dogs. So,
There's Robotnik that just is randomly like while Sonic's distracted, he's just gonna go steal water from a lake and drown it down for no reason.
well, the thing that doesn't make sense on that is that he changes costumes out of his regular Robotnik
Yeah.
sort of weird suit that he's wearing
Yeah.
into something that resembled a fighter pilot for the Axis power
Well,
during World War II.
And I'm glad you
And
say
then
that.
he makes a Hitler
Yes,
salute.
thank you, because he's got a giant
He
golden
makes
statue.
a fucking Hitler salute.
Well, look, dude, you saw the outside his headquarters, right? His lair, or whatever. He's got
Yeah,
a
with a
giant
gold statue.
gold statue of himself giving a Heil Hitler salute into the sky.
What the fuck?
It's real fucking weird. And then when he goes all Axis on us, it's just like, oh, okay, he's a Nazi. He's a
Oh
Nazi.
my God.
He's purebred Nazi.
That was a moment where I considered just closing my laptop and
Not even turning the video off, just closing it while it's still playing. Yeah.
like I'm finished. I'm finished with the with the Nazi overtones in this Sonic the Hedgehog cartoon.
He's a no good Nick.
This-
Yeah.
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 Well, the reveal, Dave, that you mentioned
Yes.
is that Breezy turns out to be a robot
Lo
herself
and
that Dr.
behold.
Robotnik had created
saw this coming?
in order to yes. From the second you meet her, you think to yourself,
she's a
yeah,
robot.
she's a fucking robot.
I love the
This-
reveal though, because they weren't just like, "Oh, I'm a Dr. Robotnik's creation." She's like, "Hold on, let me call Dr. Robotnik," and just
Yeah.
proceeds to open her chest cavity and pull a phone, like a 1990s still had the coil cord attached to the wall phone, out from her chest cavity. And Tails is watching, and they're like, "Oh, she's totally a robot. I should probably warn Sonic."
Well, Breezy sends Sonic on a series of tasks that he has to run and go get flowers, a chili dog,
An umbrella. Yep.
an umbrella to provide shade for her. But my favorite is when he goes and gets the flowers. And do you know why? Dave?
Because of the hippie dude that's hanging out at the station.
Because of the Jamaican rat
Yeah.
that is hanging out at the equator selling maps.
Yep, all by himself,
And-
just selling maps.
And do you know what he says, Dave?
I don't remember. Go ahead, buddy.
You're gonna hate me. You're
No, it's gonna
hate
be
me
it's gonna
for
be the
this.
best. I just want to hear your Jamaican accent.
Said, but remember, avoid the angry alligators. Don't provoke the python, and keep your eyes peeled for cannibals.
Oh my God! For listeners who are playing Sean's accent bingo at home, you feel free to mark Jamaican, Italian, Austrian. I think there was some German in there at the end.
I'm just considering closing my laptop right now.
You're just very.
Thanks, guys.
yes.
Mic drop.
That's his cosmopolitan accent. But yeah, no, I love that guy. I love that guy. He's there for no reason. As soon as Sonic shows up, he's like, "Oh, you're here for the map to the flowers." It's like, "Yeah, totally. That's all you do all day."
Well,
Whew.
he tries to immediately dissuade him
Yeah,
and
yeah.
say, "You don't want a map."
Nope.
And he's like, "I'm here to get flowers."
He's like,
Okay,
all
cool. You
right.
can get a map, man. Oh, Jesus.
You can get the map, man. Yeah. Hey, watch our
Way to
Tailspin episode.
negotiate
Yeah.
hearts. Yeah, right?
Well, I love that
Oh,
he's like, so Sonic just
fuck.
grabs the map and he's like, "Hey, thanks," and he just takes off. I don't know if you ever paid the guy or what, and the dude is just still shouting the instructions after him, and they're like, they could save his life, but Sonic is just like so love struck at this point that he just takes off. You know, the power of love, though, Sean. This show did have one moment of inspiration. The power of love actually saved Sonic at the end of the day, and I thought that was kind of
It
nice.
did.
I thought that was kind of nice.
It did.
He's in love with a hot, sexy hedgehog robot, but
It was a little
yeah.
predictable, but I took a screen cap of the poem that he
Oh,
wrote,
nice.
that Sonic wrote to Breezy, if you are interested
Please,
in hearing it.
please.
The poem that Sonic, when he returns from one of his errands, gives Breezy a gift that she did not ask
Hmm.
for, as well as he also writes her a poem to let her know how he
Which
feels.
saves his life.
It
It
does.
does.
And this poem reads, Robotnik is rotten. Alfalfa is sneezy. The minute I met her, I love my breezy.
He's
That's
basically
it.
illiterate, but for a
That's
hedgehog, that's pretty good.
that's not bad.
And I
That's
loved, I
pretty
love
good.
she gets like teary, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe this is just bad animation, but like a teardrop hits the page and just wipes out the word love, which I thought
It
was
does.
very
It
odd.
absolutely
Yeah, what
does.
was that about? That was really strange.
I have no
Was
idea.
it like,
Robots cry in a very specific
yeah, she was
way, and
very, very
I'm
confused about that too. She didn't understand why she was designed to murder, basically, and was crying. She's a crying robot.
yeah,
I don't
it
know.
happens. Well,
Yeah,
I think I want to get very briefly into these Sonic
read my
Says
mind. Read
segments.
my mind, buddy. Let's
Thank
go in
you.
order
Let's
because I
do it.
think they get more awesome in the order that we watch
They
them.
are
Because the
they are
first
the
one's like,
best.
the first one's fairly straightforward, stereotypical, right?
These are
These are
wonderful.
winning. Yeah.
Uh,
What
so
was the
the first
setup in the first one? The first one's like a very standard PSA for little kids.
Sure, I think Tails and Sonic are in trouble.
Right.
They have some robots that are surrounding
Yeah.
them. And Tails suggests that they call
As
911.
you do when you're in an emergency, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So there you go.
Makes
There you go,
sense.
kids. Call 911. Next. What's the next PSA?
Well, it's the explanation that
Oh.
you should not,
Oh, I
in
see.
fact.
Oh, you shouldn't call for robot
You should not
emergencies.
call 911.
I got it. He's like, I love the explanation though because they just cut from like robots surrounding them to like some random house that's on fire, and they're
Yep.
like, "This isn't an emergency. Those people are burning alive over there. So if we call 911, they're gonna come to us and not help those people. See you next time, kids." It's just like, well, hold on a second. Are you gonna help the people burning alive in that house? It was great. It was great. I appreciate the idea that was behind it, but the execution was kind of lacking because it was just kind of like, well, hold on. Ah, so don't call 911, kids. It's not
Oh
good. Don't
no.
prank call 911.
It's not good, gang.
Now,
Don't do it.
more important than that, we previously mentioned hot dogs and chili. I feel like it's almost like peanut butter and chocolate. Like if someone could only find a way to combine chili and hot dogs, this I
Right.
feel like this PSA might help us out with that.
In fact, you are
Oh,
correct.
thanks.
This PSA helps us with the idea of sharing. If I have a hot
Right.
dog, but Dave, you have some
I'm
chili,
with you.
we could share the hot dog and the chili and make chili
Well, but
dogs.
like, okay, so Sean, say you have like two hot dogs, but you only have two hot dogs, and I've got like two bowls of chili, but I've only got two bowls of chili. I don't know. I guess, yeah, I
Okay.
guess we could just share them. Then everybody wins.
Yeah, that's how this
Yeah, that
works.
was almost verbatim like the PSA, except they're sharing it with mutant foxes and a blind mole, as you expect. Now, okay, let's get to the third one because this is my
Let's
favorite.
get to the third one. This is the best one. I
Oh
just
no.
you dive into it, Dave.
Ah, no. So this is, if you're watching this show with your uncle on a Saturday morning, this could lead to an
Oh,
awkward discussion because it's about bad touching. And it basically starts off, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think somebody like wants a hug, or like we all like to get hugs, something like that to that effect.
Right. There is no setup for
No,
this.
it just dives right into this bad
Jaleel it
touching.
is Jaleel White telling you everybody likes to get
Right?
hugs.
Who doesn't?
There are good
Yeah,
hugs. Right.
totally.
Who doesn't like to get a hug?
Yeah.
There are good hugs. But there can also be bad hugs.
How do you know the
And
difference? Yeah.
if somebody touches your body in a way that is inappropriate, you need to tell an authority figure and somebody that you
Yeah,
trust.
his steps are just like tell them no very loud, get away from them, and then find somebody you trust. I don't know. The bad
Like a
touch just
teacher or your
unless
parents.
they are the one bad touching you, and then
Right.
you just need therapy for a long
Then
time.
you're SOL.
Yeah, sorry guys. Thanks, Sonic. That was
Oh,
an
that
awkward one. I
could
did
not
not
have
see that
been.
coming. I did not see bad touch
I did
Sonic
not.
coming.
I was so happy
It was
about it.
great. It was a great way to
I
end it.
I have read that there is a an alcohol PSA
Oh, we gotta find that.
in later episodes, which is why I plan on spending the rest of the night watching Sonic
Fair enough.
PSAs.
And that's a nice tease, listeners. We're playing around with the idea. I know we've mentioned it before, but we really want to go visit some of these drug episodes of just different series. So we were playing around with that
Yes.
idea. We've definitely mentioned some before. We're going to point you back to some episodes that we've covered, ridiculous drug episodes. Brave Star is still probably my favorite. Brave Star and Cops are real good.
Brave Star and Cops are the
Yeah,
best.
they're real good. But speaking of a great way to end our show tonight, Sean, do you recommend Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog?
I do not.
Ooh, okay.
I do not.
That's it. That's all you got.
I'm sorry.
That's fine.
I know this was part of my pick, and I
Can't
know
win
that I
them all,
watched
buddy.
this. There was some campiness, and it was entertaining for about a minute, and then it became
Yeah,
very repetitive.
45 minutes of this was a bit rough.
Yep.
So yeah, I'm in the same boat with you. I can't say I recommend it. Maybe it gets better. I do remember watching it as a kid and just having fun because I remember the idiot robots. They definitely stand
Right.
out to me more so than the other show.
And Grounder's a little tushy. How do you not
His little tramp
just
stamp
love?
tushy.
Yeah, it's a little robot tushy.
Yeah. So if you are into
Yeah.
Robot Tushy, go check out
Mm.
Adventures of Sonic the Hedgehog. Otherwise, this one seems like a pass, guys. So better luck next time. So,
Yeah.
Sean, buddy, what do you have coming up over the next couple of weeks?
Oh boy.
Lots of stuff.
I
Yeah.
do. The day that this drops, I want to say like it drops
Like a new
like a hot
album?
mixtape,
Like a hot album?
like a new
Yeah.
album. I'll be performing in Washington D.C. At the DC Art Center or DCAC in Adams Morgan. That's on 18th Street. It will be part of a series of shows called Chinese Menu. I get to perform with a bunch of different people that I don't normally perform with. So there, I believe the time is 8 o'clock, and you can find tickets. I will send the link over to Dave, but I believe it's ChineseMenu.com is the website for the tickets.
And if
So I will
you
double check on that.
if you screw that up, you will just get Chinese food delivered to your front door. So either way, you win. It's not a problem. You
Win-win,
win either way.
guys.
You can actually order from Win Win's Chinese restaurant.
Win. Perfect. And then next week, next Wednesday, I will be, or April the 22nd, I will be at the Women in Comedy Festival that's up in Boston.
Very nice.
And I will be there for their first annual film night. Film that I helped write and work on last year called Misfortune was accepted, and they are doing a screening and then they're handing out awards. So if you would like to, I will send all the links, and I believe Dave has been diligent about posting that information. I think it's Women in Comedy is the website, or if you are on the Googles and you want to search for that. But we'll have the link on the site, and you can buy tickets and come and hang out, say hello, and we're hoping that we're just glad to be there, guys.
Yeah.
I'm going up there with our friend and frequent guest Tony Lazzaroni and another friend of ours, Brianna Lux, who both work for Crowded Elevator Pictures, and we are pumped just to go to Boston.
Excellent, man. Good luck. Or
yeah.
break your legs or whatever they say in your line
Thank
of
you.
showbiz.
Break faces.
Yeah, break your faces. If the folks
So-
want to keep up with you over all your various adventures, where can they find you on social media?
You can find my shenanigans at Sean Paul Ellis.
Excellent. You can find me at
Yeah.
Dr. Claw MD. You can also check me out over at collider.com and
Yeah.
collider.com/TV. Yeah, what? Where I've been
What?
covering. Man, we're really wrapping up now with a lot of the superhero shows. I'm going to plug mine. I also want to plug our Daredevil recaps by a previous guest that we had on, Evan Valentine. He also writes for the site,
Yes.
and he's been doing the Daredevil recaps. Daredevil's an awesome show, so
Yes.
definitely check it out. Read up on his recaps over at collider.com. If you're interested in what I've got going on, I recap Gotham, The Flash, Arrow, and now I'm doing Game of Thrones as well. So that diverges a little bit from the comic book stuff, but hey, there's lots of nudity and blood and whatnot, so good times. Good times. That's
You're
all we
doing
need.
three out of those four are wonderful.
Yeah, we'll just leave
Shows
that
to
up to the
watch.
listeners to figure out which one I'm not a fan of, but it'll
Come
be
on,
back
listeners.
to it.
You guys know
You
exactly
guys
which
got
one
the smarts,
is garbage.
You know it's garbage. But if you like it anyway, what are you gonna do? Hey, if
There's
you
a
want to
reason
know,
that Chris
yeah,
there's a reason that Chris Hardwick isn't doing a talkback show for Gotham.
it's true. What would your Gotham talkback show be?
Uh,
Mine would be Talk Back the Night.
ooh,
Yeah.
that is you know what?
Thank you very
That
much.
is that is awesome.
Talk Back
That's a
the Night.
really good one.
That's gonna be the new
Talk Back the Night.
Batman Broadway show. Talk Back the
Fuck,
Night.
that is really good, man.
That's better than Gotham. So, yeah, if you guys want to learn more about our show, Saturday Morning Cartoons, head on over to our website, SaturdayMorningCartoons.com. You can also check out Sean's handiwork over at the Tumblr page, SaturdayMorningCartoons.tumblr.com. Remember, that's Tumblr with a U and also morning with a U. You can follow us along on Twitter at MorningTunes, and feel free to send us your suggestions and cool Sonic the Hedgehog fanfic over to SaturdayMorningCartoons@gmail.com. Sean, I feel like there's some sort of unique artwork that like really speaks to me for some reason. I don't know what it is. I'm just getting this vision. Maybe you can help me out.
Ooh.
I just got this
Could
vision
it
right now.
be the recent photo that I posted on our Tumblr of Mario eating pasta?
I mean, it's either that or a withdrawal from the brothers. I don't know what it is. It might be something
Well,
you
I
want to
will
share
say
with listeners. Yeah.
I will say this. I
Yeah.
know I teased at it and I discussed this a little earlier. We have recently worked with a friend of ours who is an illustrator. His name is Rory Lucy, and Rory has done an amazing job coming up with some icon or with an icon that we are going to start using as branding for the show.
Yeah.
So if you go over to YouTube and if you listen to us on YouTube, if you're downloading us on iTunes and Stitcher, our image is going to be changing shortly. If you go on Twitter or Tumblr or any of our social media presences, we're going to be updating these as this episode drops this Saturday. So we are pumped to share this with you. And if you want to check out some of the amazing work, seriously, the amazing work that Rory does, you can check out rorylucy.com. That's, I believe it's RORYLUCEY.com.
You got it.
Rory Lucy. You're the best, dude.
Yeah, it's awesome. Shout out from me too, because we just kind of gave him like a basic idea of what we want, and he just nailed it. I mean, he gave us a ton of ideas, and the one Sean and I, as soon as we saw it, we were just like, "That's it! You just nailed it."
That's it.
I mean, it's great. So I hope you guys really like it too, and I hope you're enjoying the show so far. Sean, we're gonna be wrapping up our video game series coverage next week, at least the first iteration of this. So we're gonna go out with a bang here.
Oh, are we?
Yeah, I hope so. I don't know. It could be a double bang.
We're gonna go out. We're gonna go out in more of a street brawl
Yeah,
than
Super Bowl
anything
style.
else.
What do we got coming up next week?
Next week we are going to be talking and watching Double Dragon.
This
the
could
cartoon
be
series.
disastrous. I don't remember.
This could be the worst.
Could be real bad.
I didn't watch this show. Dave, did you ever see it?
I feel like I did, but now I'm like it's blending in my memory with Jackie Chan Adventures for some reason, and I'm getting very confused. So I need to go back and watch it. So yeah, that's what we'll be doing next week.
I am super excited to watch. I'm always excited about a cartoon that I have zero frame of reference,
Right.
and this is one of them, and I could not be more excited about it.
Excellent. Well, I'm excited too. So listeners, we hope to see you next time on Saturday Morning Cartoons. Thanks for listening.